Imagine a world where the fate of humanity depends on understanding not words, but colors, shifting hues that hold secrets beyond comprehension. A dying planet, an impossible language, and one man who can see what no one else can. But time is running out, and his apprentice must unlock this cosmic code before it's too late. Will she succeed? Or will Earth perish in silence? Stay until the end to find out, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending stories. The year was 2147, and Earth had become a shadow of its former self. Once teeming with life, oceans now churned with toxic algae blooms, skies were perpetually gray from industrial fallout, and crops failed under relentless heat waves. Humanity clung to survival by threads as thin as spider silk, their hopes pinned on desperate ventures into space for resources or alliances. It was during one such venture, a routine probe mission near Proxima Centauri, that the impossible happened. Contact. A fleet of ships emerged from the void, their forms sleek and otherworldly, shimmering like liquid crystal under starlight. They called themselves the KRADH, beings unlike anything humanity had imagined. Their bodies were semi-transparent, shifting through iridescent hues like living prisms. Communication attempts faltered immediately. These aliens spoke not with sounds or gestures, but through intricate patterns of color that pulsed across their skin. To human eyes, it seemed less like communication and more like art, or perhaps magic. Yet embedded within those flowing colors lay answers, solutions to heal Earth's dying ecosystems, reverse climate collapse, and restore balance to nature itself. But there was a catch. Understanding the KRADH required decoding their language, a task so complex it bordered on insurmountable. Only one person stood even remotely close to bridging the gap: Dr. Elias Voss, a reclusive linguist whose decades-long obsession with nonverbal languages had left him both brilliant and broken. And he was dying. Voss had spent most of his life studying languages that defied conventional understanding. From whale songs to ancient hieroglyphs, he sought patterns where others saw chaos. His fascination with synesthesia, a condition causing him to perceive colors, textures, and emotions tied to abstract concepts, had led him down paths few dared tread. When the KRADH appeared, their chromatic language resonated with him on a primal level. He didn't just interpret their meanings, he felt them. Yet years of isolation and strain had taken their toll. At 72, Voss's body was failing him. His hands trembled constantly, his vision blurred despite advanced implants, and his lungs wheezed with every breath. Still, he pressed on knowing the stakes. Beside him worked Mira Callan, a fiercely intelligent graduate student half his age. She had joined his team 5 years earlier, drawn by curiosity and idealism. Now, she bore the weight of responsibility almost as heavily as Voss did. Mira often wondered how much longer her mentor could hold out. Every day brought new setbacks, equipment malfunctions, incomplete translations, and cryptic responses from the KRADH themselves. Worse still, Voss refused to share everything he understood about their language. "It's too delicate," he would say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Too fragile to rush." But time wasn't on their side. If they failed, Earth would continue its inexorable decline, and billions would suffer, or worse. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. Governments demanded updates, corporations sought proprietary access to the KRADH's technology, and activists clamored for transparency. Amidst the chaos, Voss and Mira remained isolated, shielded by layers of security protocols, but pressure seeped in nonetheless. One evening, after another fruitless session, Mira confronted him. "You're dying, Elias," she said bluntly. "What happens if you don't teach me everything? What happens to Earth then?" Voss sighed, his frail frame sagging further into his chair. "It's not that simple, Mira. This language, it changes you. It rewires your brain. I've seen others try to learn it without proper preparation. They go mad, or worse, misinterpret completely. One wrong word to the KRADH could doom us all." Despite his warnings, Mira grew increasingly determined. She immersed herself deeper into the project, studying every interaction between Voss and the KRADH. Slowly, painfully, she began making progress. Certain combinations started clicking into place. Blues often signaled intent, greens conveyed emotion, while reds hinted at urgency. Yet context mattered deeply. The same shade could mean vastly different things depending on surrounding hues or timing. Frustration gnawed at her constantly. Why couldn't Voss simply explain what he knew? Why did he insist on keeping parts of his knowledge locked away? Then came the incident. During a live transmission, a junior technician accidentally triggered a feedback loop in the translation system. Instead of coherent messages, garbled bursts of light flooded the screen, causing several KRADH delegates to retreat abruptly. Though no harm was done, the event underscored the fragility of their efforts. Any mistake, no matter how minor, could sever ties forever. That night, Voss collapsed. Rushed to medical care. He survived, but barely. Doctors gave him weeks, maybe months at most. Time was slipping away faster than ever. With Voss bedridden, Mira took charge. Her first decision was bold. She requested direct access to the KRADH delegation. Until now, interactions had been filtered through intermediaries, leaving room for error. If she was to master their language, she needed first-hand exposure. After some hesitation, the KRADH agreed. Standing face-to-face, or rather, face-to-shimmering form, with the aliens, Mira felt a mix of awe and terror. Up close, their translucency revealed subtle internal structures pulsating with rhythmic light. Their presence exuded calm, yet something about them unsettled her. Were they watching her? Judging her? Testing her? Her initial attempts at communication were clumsy, relying heavily on pre-recorded sequences provided by Voss. But gradually, she ventured beyond scripts, experimenting with spontaneous combinations. Sometimes, the KRADH responded with mirrored patterns, suggesting approval. Other times, they remained silent, leaving her unsure whether she'd succeeded or failed. Back in the lab, she dissected each encounter meticulously, searching for clues. Patterns began emerging, not just linguistic ones, but behavioral. The KRADH seemed attuned to emotional states, reacting differently based on her tone or posture. Could empathy play a role in their language? If so, mastering it required more than intellect. It demanded connection. As days turned into weeks, Myra's relationship with the KRADH deepened. She learned to read nuances in their chromatic displays, picking up on subtleties that eluded even Voss. Where he saw structure, she found poetry. Where he detected logic, she sensed emotion. This duality became her strength, allowing her to bridge gaps neither humans nor KRADH could cross alone. Yet challenges persisted. Some concepts resisted translation entirely. How do you convey hope in a language rooted in spectral shifts? How do you express desperation without invoking panic? These questions haunted her, driving her to push harder, dig deeper. Sleep became optional, meals sporadic. Her dedication bordered on obsession, but she knew failure wasn't an option. During one particularly grueling session, she stumbled upon a revelation. Embedded within certain sequences were recursive loops, self-referential patterns that hinted at metacommunication. In essence, the KRADH weren't merely speaking, they were teaching. By guiding her through layered meanings, they encouraged her to think beyond literal interpretations. Language, she realized, wasn't just a tool for exchange, it was a framework for understanding existence itself. News of her breakthrough reached Voss, who summoned her despite his weakened state. Lying propped up in bed, tubes snaking from his arms, he listened intently as she explained her findings. For the first time in months, his eyes sparkled with pride. "You're seeing it," he murmured. "Not just the surface, but the soul behind it." Encouraged, Mira asked him to elaborate. What else had he kept hidden? Reluctantly, he shared fragments of insight gleaned over decades. Concepts like harmonic resonance and chromatic empathy opened new avenues of exploration. Together, they pieced together a rudimentary lexicon, laying groundwork for future translators. But Voss's health continued deteriorating. Knowing his time was short, he urged Mira to focus on practical applications. Forget perfection, he advised. Just find what we need to save Earth. Everything else can wait. His words echoed in her mind as she prepared for the next phase, presenting a formal proposal to the KRADH. Armed with newly acquired fluency, she crafted a message outlining humanity's plight and requesting assistance. Success depended not only on accuracy, but also on authenticity. Could she convey sincerity through shifting shades? Could she make them understand why Earth mattered? Myra's newfound understanding of the KRADH language marked a turning point, but it also brought fresh challenges. The recursive loops she had discovered hinted at layers of meaning far deeper than surface-level translations. Each sequence wasn't just a message, it was a doorway into the KRADH's worldview, a kaleidoscope of interconnected ideas, emotions, and philosophies. Yet, as Mira delved further, she realized that mastering these patterns required more than intellectual rigor. It demanded an emotional resonance, a willingness to let go of human biases and embrace an alien perspective. Her daily sessions with the KRADH became meditative exercises. She would sit in silence, observing their shifting hues, allowing herself to feel rather than analyze. Blues no longer represented mere intent. They carried undertones of curiosity and caution. Greens weren't just emotions, they conveyed cycles, growth, and decay. Reds throbbed with urgency, but also with vitality, a reminder of life's fragility. Over time, Mira began to see the KRADH not as enigmatic beings but as teachers, patiently guiding her toward a new way of thinking. Yet this progress came at a cost. Her immersion in their language left her drained, both mentally and physically. Sleepless nights became routine as she replayed interactions in her mind, dissecting every nuance. Colleagues noticed the toll it took on her. Her once vibrant energy dulled, replaced by a quiet intensity. Some urged her to take breaks, but Mira couldn't afford to slow down. With Voss's health deteriorating, the responsibility rested squarely on her shoulders. Failure wasn't an option. One evening, after hours of practice, Mira stumbled upon something extraordinary. A particular chromatic sequence, when repeated in reverse, revealed a hidden layer of meaning. It wasn't just a linguistic trick, it was a key. The KRADH had embedded instructions within their language, subtle cues designed to lead learners toward greater comprehension. This discovery filled her with renewed purpose. She realized that the KRADH weren't merely offering solutions. They were teaching humanity how to think differently, how to approach problems with creativity and empathy. But as her connection with the KRADH deepened, so did the scrutiny from outside forces. News outlets sensationalized her work, speculating about the implications of alien intervention. Conspiracy theorists accused the KRADH of harboring ulterior motives, while politicians debated whether their technology should be shared globally or restricted to select nations. Amidst the noise, Mira struggled to maintain focus. Every misstep risked undermining trust, and trust was the foundation of everything. The pressure mounted when a high-profile delegation arrived at the research facility, demanding updates. Among them were government officials, corporate executives, and environmental activists, each with their own agenda. Mira stood before them, flanked by holographic displays showcasing her progress. Her voice trembled slightly as she explained the complexities of the KRADH language and the painstaking process of decoding it. "Imagine trying to understand poetry written in colors," she said, gesturing to a shimmering projection. Every hue carries context, history, emotion. Misinterpreting even one shade could alter the entire meaning. Her words silenced the room momentarily, but skepticism lingered. One executive leaned forward, his tone cutting. "Dr. Callan, we don't have time for poetry. Billions of lives depend on this. When will you deliver results?" Mira clenched her fists beneath the table, forcing herself to remain calm. Results require patience. Rushing this risks catastrophic misunderstandings. Later that night, she vented her frustrations to Voss, who listened weakly from his hospital bed. "They don't get it," she muttered. "They think this is like flipping a switch. But it's not. It's like building a bridge brick by brick." Voss nodded faintly. "And bridges take time. Don't let them rush you, Mira. Trust your instincts. His advice stayed with her as she prepared for another session with the CARE-ADH. This time, she decided to take a bold step. Instead of relying solely on pre-recorded sequences, she attempted to construct her own message, a plea for guidance. Using what she'd learned, she layered blues for intent, greens for sincerity, and golds for gratitude. As the colors danced across the screen, the CARE-ADH responded almost immediately, their forms glowing brighter than ever before. For the first time, Mira felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps she was closer than she thought. Weeks turned into months, and Myra's fluency improved exponentially. She began identifying recurring motifs in the CARE-ADH's communication, patterns that suggested universal principles. For instance, certain combinations consistently appeared during discussions about ecosystems, hinting at a holistic view of existence. Others emerged when addressing concepts like time or change, revealing a nonlinear perception of reality. These insights fascinated her, challenging her to rethink fundamental assumptions about life itself. Meanwhile, Earth's condition worsened. Droughts ravaged continents, wildfires consumed forests, and rising sea levels displaced millions. Desperation fueled protests worldwide, with crowds chanting for immediate action. Images of suffering flooded media outlets, adding urgency to Myra's mission. She knew that every delay prolonged the agony, yet rushing carried its own dangers. One wrong translation could doom negotiations entirely. To cope with the stress, Mira adopted rituals that grounded her. Each morning, she spent an hour meditating, visualizing the chromatic sequences she'd encountered. In the evenings, she journaled her thoughts, documenting breakthroughs and setbacks alike. These practices helped her stay centered, even as chaos swirled around her. Then came the breakthrough she'd been waiting for. During a particularly intense session, the CARE-ADH introduced a new sequence, one that resonated deeply with Mira. It combined elements of harmony, balance, and renewal, suggesting a solution to Earth's ecological crisis. Eager to confirm her interpretation, she cross-referenced it with previous exchanges, finding consistent themes. Heart-pounding, she drafted a proposal outlining potential applications. If successful, this could be the key to saving the planet. Presenting her findings to the CARE-ADH delegation was nerve-wracking. Mira stood alone in the sterile conference chamber, surrounded by holographic projections displaying her carefully constructed sequences. As she activated the first pattern, nerves threatened to overwhelm her. What if she got it wrong? What if they rejected her plea outright? To her relief, the CARE-ADH responded almost immediately. Their forms rippled with vibrant hues, signaling acknowledgement. Encouraged, she pressed on, layering additional sequences to reinforce key points. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by occasional confirmations from her audience. Finally, she concluded with a plea for collaboration, emphasizing shared goals over mutual differences. When she finished, the room fell still. Heart-pounding, Mira waited. Then, slowly, the CARE-ADH began emitting a unified pulse, a rhythmic cascade of colors unlike anything she'd seen before. Translating it proved difficult, but one phrase stood out clearly: "We will help." Tears streamed down her face as realization sank in. Against all odds, she'd succeeded. Humanity had a chance. With the CARE-ADH's agreement to assist humanity, Mira found herself thrust into a whirlwind of activity. The delegation provided detailed instructions, encoded in their chromatic language, for technologies capable of reversing environmental damage. These solutions ranged from atmospheric purification systems to soil rejuvenation methods, each requiring precise implementation. Mira worked tirelessly alongside scientists and engineers to translate these concepts into actionable plans. The initial stages were fraught with challenges. Misinterpretations led to equipment malfunctions, while unforeseen variables complicated field tests. For instance, a prototype device designed to filter carbon dioxide from the air overheated during its first trial, releasing harmful byproducts. Such setbacks fueled skepticism among critics, who argued that humanity should rely on its own ingenuity rather than alien intervention. Despite these obstacles, Mira remained steadfast. Drawing on her deepening understanding of the KRADH's language, she identified subtle nuances in their instructions that others had overlooked. One critical adjustment involved synchronizing the devices with natural cycles, a concept embedded in the KRADH's worldview but foreign to human engineering practices. When implemented correctly, the results were transformative. Air quality improved dramatically in test regions, and barren lands began sprouting green shoots within weeks. As success stories emerged, public perception shifted. Images of revitalized ecosystems flooded media outlets, igniting hope across the globe. Protests demanding immediate action gave way to celebrations of progress. Yet, behind the scenes, tension simmered. Corporate interests clashed with environmental goals, and geopolitical rivalries threatened to derail collaborative efforts. Mira often found herself mediating disputes, advocating for unity over division. Her role as intermediary extended beyond technical matters. It became deeply personal. She developed a profound respect for the KRADH, recognizing them not as saviors, but as partners in humanity's journey toward sustainability. Their patience and generosity inspired her to push harder, even when fatigue weighed heavily on her shoulders. By mid-2148, Earth showed signs of recovery. Oceans teemed with life once more, forests reclaimed deforested areas, and urban centers adopted eco-friendly designs powered by KRADH-inspired technology. Public enthusiasm reached fever pitch, with festivals celebrating the planet's renewal drawing millions of attendees. Amidst this jubilation, Mira stood quietly, humbled by the magnitude of what had been achieved, and aware of how fragile it all remained. Voss's health continued to decline, and his presence grew increasingly distant. Confined to a hospital bed, he relied on recordings to stay informed about ongoing projects. On rare occasions, Mira visited, sharing updates about milestones and breakthroughs. During one such visit, she recounted the story of a small coastal town where purified water sources had restored marine biodiversity. "You did it," Voss whispered, gripping her hand weakly. "You saved us all." His words brought tears to her eyes. Though grateful for his guidance, she knew the journey was far from over. Humanity's survival depended not just on technological fixes, but on fundamental changes in mindset. Could people truly embrace the values reflected in the KRADH's language, harmony, balance, and interconnectedness? Or would old habits resurface, undoing the progress made? Determined to ensure lasting change, Mira spearheaded educational initiatives aimed at fostering global cooperation. Schools incorporated lessons on interspecies communication and ecological stewardship, while cultural exchange programs encouraged dialogue between nations. Through these efforts, she hoped to instill a sense of shared responsibility for Earth's future. Winter arrived, bringing snow to regions long bereft of seasons. Mira stood outside her lab, gazing at flakes drifting lazily through crisp air. Behind her, monitors flickered with ongoing projects. Progress continued, yet uncertainty loomed large. Inside, Voss lay motionless, machines monitoring his vitals. Days earlier, he'd slipped into a coma, leaving Mira bereft. Without him, the journey felt lonelier, darker. Grief mingled with gratitude for his sacrifices, his wisdom, his unwavering belief in her potential. On Christmas Eve, surrounded by colleagues and friends, she received news of his passing. Silence descended momentarily, broken only by soft sobs. Later, standing alone beside his empty bed, she whispered goodbye. "Thank you," she added softly, "for everything." Voss's death marked a turning point. While mourning his loss, Mira resolved to honor his legacy by redoubling her efforts. She threw herself into mentoring a new generation of linguists and diplomats, ensuring that the knowledge he'd imparted wouldn't fade with time. Among her protégés was Lila, a bright-eyed young woman eager to follow in her footsteps. Together, they explored untapped aspects of the KRADH language, uncovering mysteries even Voss hadn't foreseen. Recursive metaphors hinted at higher dimensions, while harmonic frequencies suggested universal truths waiting to be unraveled. Possibilities stretched endlessly ahead. Spring brought renewal, not just to Earth, but to Myra's spirit. Inspired by Voss's legacy, she dedicated herself fully to building bridges between species. Collaborative initiatives flourished, yielding innovations previously unimaginable. From sustainable energy grids powered by bioluminescence to agriculture enhanced by chromatic symbiosis, humanity thrived alongside the KRADH. Public perception shifted gradually, skepticism giving way to admiration. Stories circulated of miraculous recoveries, technological marvels, and interstellar diplomacy. Mira became a symbol of hope, her name synonymous with resilience and ingenuity. Yet fame held little appeal. Content and anonymity, she preferred quiet reflection to accolades. Often, she returned to the lab, revisiting notes scrawled in Voss's shaky handwriting. Memories of their partnership sustained her, reminding her why she fought so fiercely. One evening, beneath a canopy of stars, Mira recounted her journey to Lila. Tales of desperation, discovery, and triumph painted vivid pictures of a pivotal era. Listening raptly, Lila marveled at her mentor's courage. "You changed the world," she said finally. Mira smiled wistfully.
No, Lila.
"We all did. Together." Above them, constellations twinkled faintly, mirroring the KRADH's iridescent glow. Somewhere among those distant lights, their benefactors continued voyaging, carrying lessons learned from Earth onward. Perhaps someday, humanity would join them, venturing beyond known horizons. Until then, Mira cherished the present, grateful for every moment gifted by perseverance and partnership. Tomorrow awaited, brimming with promise. Years later, Earth resembled paradise compared to its former self. Oceans teemed with life, cities gleamed with eco-friendly architecture, and communities embraced diversity wholeheartedly. Even skeptics admitted the KRADH transformed society fundamentally. Mira aged gracefully, her youthful determination tempered by wisdom. Though retired officially, she remained active, mentoring new generations of linguists and diplomats. Among them was her protégé, a bright-eyed young woman named Lila, eager to follow in her footsteps. Together, they explored untapped aspects of the KRADH language, uncovering mysteries even Voss hadn't foreseen. Recursive metaphors hinted at higher dimensions, while harmonic frequencies suggested universal truths waiting to be unraveled. Possibilities stretched endlessly ahead. One evening, beneath a canopy of stars, Mira recounted her journey to Lila. Tales of desperation, discovery, and triumph painted vivid pictures of a pivotal era. Listening raptly, Lila marveled at her mentor's courage. "You changed the world," she said finally. Mira smiled wistfully.
No, Lila.
"We all did. Together." Above them, constellations twinkled faintly, mirroring the KRADH's iridescent glow. Somewhere among those distant lights, their benefactors continued voyaging, carrying lessons learned from Earth onward. Perhaps someday, humanity would join them, venturing beyond known horizons. Until then, Mira cherished the present, grateful for every moment gifted by perseverance and partnership. Tomorrow awaited, brimming with promise. Centuries passed, and humanity's transformation continued to unfold in ways both expected and unforeseen. The alliance with the KRADH had not only saved Earth, but also reshaped its culture, politics, and philosophy. Societies around the globe embraced principles of interconnectedness, sustainability, and empathy, values that resonated deeply with the lessons encoded in the KRADH's language. Cities evolved into harmonious ecosystems, blending advanced technology with natural landscapes. Vertical farms stretched toward skies now clear of smog, while rivers flowed clean and teeming with life once more. Historians often referred to this era as the Chromatic Renaissance, a nod to the pivotal role the KRADH's color-based communication played in bridging species and fostering understanding. Educational systems worldwide incorporated courses on interspecies linguistics, encouraging students to think beyond human-centric paradigms. Art, music, and literature flourished under the influence of alien aesthetics, leading to entirely new forms of creative expression inspired by shifting hues and spectral patterns. Yet, despite the progress, questions lingered about humanity's readiness for such profound change. Some argued that reliance on KRADH technology created dependencies, stifling innovation among humans. Others worried that cultural homogenization might erode unique traditions and identities. These debates persisted, reflecting the complexities of coexistence between vastly different civilizations. For Mira, who lived long enough to witness much of this evolution, these concerns were valid, but secondary to the greater good achieved. By the time she reached her twilight years, she saw herself not as a hero but as a conduit, someone fortunate enough to have stood at the intersection of two worlds and helped forge a path forward. Her memoirs, published posthumously, became required reading for diplomats, scientists, and philosophers alike. In them, she wrote, Language is more than words. It is a mirror reflecting how we see ourselves and our place in the universe. To understand another's tongue is to glimpse their soul, and perhaps, in doing so, rediscover pieces of your own. As centuries turned into millennia, humanity ventured further into space, guided by the principles learned from the KRADH. Exploratory missions sought out other intelligent species, driven by a desire to share knowledge rather than conquer or exploit. This shift marked a radical departure from humanity's past tendencies, symbolizing a maturation born of necessity and humility. The descendants of Myra's protégés carried her legacy into the stars. Among them was Lila's great-granddaughter, Kayla, a renowned xenolinguist whose work expanded on the foundational insights gained from the KRADH. She specialized in deciphering nonverbal languages, developing tools that allowed humans to communicate with beings whose modes of expression defied conventional understanding, from bioluminescent creatures in oceanic exoplanets to crystalline entities that communicated through refracted light. Kayla often reflected on Myra's story, drawing inspiration from her perseverance and vision. Like Mira, she believed that true connection required more than intellect. It demanded vulnerability, openness, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. Her breakthrough came when she discovered a universal pattern underlying many alien languages, a harmonic resonance akin to the recursive loops Mira had identified in the KRADH's chromatic sequences. This discovery revolutionized interstellar diplomacy, enabling unprecedented levels of cooperation across galaxies. Back on Earth, monuments dedicated to Mira and Voss stood as testaments to their contributions. Their names were etched into history books alongside other luminaries who had shaped humanity's destiny. Yet, for all the accolades, it was their quiet determination that left the deepest impression, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and curiosity could illuminate the darkest paths. In the distant future, humanity looked back on its encounter with the KRADH as a defining moment, not just in its survival, but in its evolution. What began as a desperate bid to save a dying planet blossomed into a renaissance of thought, art, and exploration. The lessons learned from the KRADH transcended generations, embedding themselves into the fabric of human identity. Earth itself thrived, its ecosystems restored to a state of balance unseen since before industrialization. Forests sprawled across continents, oceans brimmed with vibrant coral reefs, and skies shimmered with auroras visible even in equatorial regions. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation occurred within humanity itself. People no longer viewed Earth as merely a resource to exploit, but as a living entity deserving care and respect, an extension of themselves. Amidst this prosperity, stories of Mira and the KRADH endured, retold in countless forms. They became myths, legends, and parables, each iteration emphasizing different facets of the tale: the fragility of existence, the power of collaboration, and the boundless potential of understanding. Children grew up hearing about the linguist who spoke in colors and the aliens who taught humanity how to heal its home. And yet, for all the advancements, humanity retained its flaws. Conflicts arose, misunderstandings persisted, and mistakes were made. But these imperfections served as reminders of what made the journey meaningful, the ongoing struggle to grow, adapt, and connect. Somewhere among the stars, the KR-80H continued their voyages, carrying fragments of humanity's story with them. Perhaps one day, they would return, or perhaps humanity would find them again, ready to embark on new adventures together. So, here ends our tale, but not yours. The universe is vast, filled with mysteries waiting to be unraveled and connections yearning to be forged. What will you discover next? Don't miss out on future adventures. Hit subscribe and embark on a journey through imagination and wonder.